Hello, everyone, and welcome to Elevate, the show that is designed to remind you of your greatness. Because when you focus on your greatness, you elevate everyone around you. You guys, I am so excited to be here with you today. My first ever live show of Elevate. And I am so excited to, get to be here with you guys and get to share this guest who is my first interviewee on the show, and so excited to get to showcase this amazing powerhouse woman. You guys, I met this woman many years ago now. Her and I have been friends for several years. And we started to get to know one another inside of this social selling space. She has been in this social selling space for many years. She's had so much success when it comes to building a business online, to building her own personal brand. When I first met her, she inspired me so much. She inspired me always to get out of my own way, to really step up and live my life authentically. So I am super excited to get to share this beautiful woman with you all. So I am going to go ahead and bring her from backstage, Christina Whiteley. Hello,
Hi, how are
Christina.
you? How are you? It's so nice
Oh
to
my gosh,
see
I
you.
am so Oh my gosh, it's so nice to see you. Thank you for being so flexible. You guys, this is all a learning curve for me. So, Christina has been so patient with me from the get go as far as, okay, this is what we need to do in StreamYard, all of the things. So, Christina, thank you so much for being patient. I really wanted you to be the first guest on this show because I feel like in some ways it's come full circle, right? You and I have done some live videos together. We've done some trainings together. And I feel like, I've learned so much in this process, probably as you have as well, right? And so it just felt very fitting to have you be one of the first guests on the show. I've always just admired you so much, especially, when I came on to this whole social selling thing, you had been doing it for a long, long time, and you had seen some massive success in that space. And so you were just somebody that I really looked up to in so many ways, and somebody that was so willing to, take us newbies under your wing and just kind of show us the ropes. And so super excited to get to interview you today, and super excited to have you on. So Christina, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the lovely introduction. I do feel like it's full circle, and it's so interesting, in this online space, the people that get brought into your life and the people that you get to meet, and just by showing up as yourself, you impact people just by having conversations and getting to know people. And I was listening to Jordan Peterson the other day, and he said, if you think people are boring, it's because you're not a very good listener. I'm paraphrasing, right? And so it's been so interesting over the last couple of years to have these interesting conversations with people around the world and realize like we're all here to elevate. We're all here to support each other. And when you connect with like minded females, then the world is your oyster. Like the opportunities that will come up because of that. I'm so honored to be your first guest. Thank you so much for having me. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm from BC. I'm from British Columbia, Canada, and currently my family and I are living in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. I was born in like a really small town, like a little mill town you could only get to by ferry, about 15,000 people. So real small town vibes, and I just always felt inside of me there was like there was a call to do more, and I couldn't ever put my finger on that feeling. I couldn't ever describe it to people, but I knew that I was meant to do more. I knew that I was meant to be around people, and just having conversations with people really lit my soul on fire. And so that's why I wanted to bring attention to how important these conversations are right now. And so I grew up there. I ended up going to university like, we were expected to, like, go to school, get good grades, go get your degree. I'm actually 2 classes shy of my degree because I quit before I finished. And I went to school for music because it was the only thing that I loved, but I was never somebody that really loved being in school. I was a doer. Like, I wanted to get out and do stuff. I didn't want to sit there and learn from somebody. Like, I fell asleep in almost every university class. It was terrible. Like, I didn't make any friends there, let's put it that way. Right? So I did that. I realized about 5 years in that I was like, this is not what I want to do. Like, I want to be around people, and so I ended up going to school for hair for a year, and I started my own salon and on-site wedding business, and went on to do that. Always had that entrepreneurial gene. Even as a little kid, would like sell stuff to people when I, would like make stuff, make candles and sell them to my neighbors, or like come up with a paper route because the paper route in my area wasn't available. So I just like figure out something else. And so I think that
I love
we're
it.
in this really important time in our lives that there's an opportunity for transition. There's an opportunity to like rebirth who you are and find your purpose and create a lifestyle and an income around that. And so that's exactly what the social selling space did. I had worked for 11 years in hair, and I had a really bad shoulder injury just before my daughter was born. I couldn't continue working, and I needed to do something different. So I saw a girl online that was sitting at the beach with her kids, making money from her phone, and at the time she was making 5 figures a month. And I knew this girl. She was a house cleaner, and I was like, how is this girl making 5 figures a month online? Like, this can't be real. And I remember thinking, but if she can do it, why can't I do it? Because like, I was getting up at 5 a.m. to go do weddings. I was like working every single evening, and I was like, this is not the life that I want for my family. And so
Mhm.
it's not going to change magically. I have to do something different if I want my life to change. And so I called up this girl. I said, "What are you doing? Teach me what it is you do, and I'll see if I can do it too." And very quickly realized what I had my hands on. And was able to scale a business quite quickly. And within a year, was able, and like, this story isn't typical. I get that, but like within a year, I was able to bring my husband home, and he was able to be, a stay-at-home dad, and we were able to develop property and move from the city to the country and start living a different lifestyle. And then we just decided it was time for another adventure, and packed up about a year and a half ago now, and came down to Mexico, and decided that we're going to live our life down here, and get to be, digital nomads, and create a freedom lifestyle, which most people are craving right now after the last 2 years of COVID and lockdowns and all that stuff. People are just done with it. And so I feel really lucky that I get to lead the charge on that, and show people what's possible out there.
Mhm. That's incredible. One of the things that I love so much is that, watching you, it seems like you are someone who really does things that is right and necessary for you and your family, right? Like, you didn't follow the traditional, you know, line of work, and you didn't follow even, I want to eventually get to your story about how you left BC where you grew up and
Hmm.
packed everything and moved down to Cabo,
Hmm.
because felt something. You felt, I'll let you describe it, but
Hmm.
that's something that I've definitely always admired about you, is that you really live your life authentically to you. You haven't let anything else define you. So, can you talk to us a little bit? Tell us about that journey, right?
Hmm.
From growing up in BC, living there, having lived there your whole life, right?
Yep. Well, I did move to Toronto for
And
a little bit to
then,
go to school. I did move to Ontario, and that's where I went to school for music as well. But, it's so
okay,
like, I think that it's important to address that, we're not brought up this way. We're not brought up to follow our intuition. We're brought up in a
no,
school system that creates employees. We're brought up, into a university system that again plugs people into a job, that makes them the highest tax bracket and paying into a system that quite frankly kind of keeps you broke, right? And so
yeah,
I saw my parents work really, really, really hard, and we had everything growing up. I remember, we were mortgage free when I was in my high school years, and that was like unheard of back then, right? People had 30-year mortgages, but we were mortgage free, and I didn't understand the value of that at the time. And what it would take, like
mhm,
what kind of hard work. I saw my dad work really,
mhm,
really hard, and I saw my mom work really hard. But I was like, they work like so many hours, And like my mom sometimes wasn't there on Christmas, or my dad would get called out in the middle of the night and wouldn't be able to go to a soccer game or be able to do something on the weekend because he got home at 5 o'clock in the morning. And so it made me realize like how I wanted to raise my family. And right now, more than anything, like there's so much online that people don't believe, right? The media has lied to us. There's been all of these things that people are like very skeptical of people online. And so I have always, and not to say that I haven't been influenced and not to say that I haven't had my challenges, but I've always wanted to live in alignment with who I truly am. And I have, right? I've always gone after what I wanted. And if that changed, I was willing to reflect and be like, okay, that's not the right path. Like we can adjust course. It's not a big deal, right? So often people look at those as failures, but I'm just like, wait a second, this is just not what I thought it was going to be. I learned through failure. I learned through learning what I didn't want versus what I did want, and I was willing to work harder for what I did want. And so, I did move across the country and go to school for music because I was like, if I'm going to be stuck in the system that everybody thinks we should do, then at least I'm going to go to school for something that I love. And unfortunately, like school really took the joy out of singing and music for me. But
Mhm.
it's no surprise to me that I stand on stages now and speak to people and have that kind of relationship and performance aspect because I love that. Like, there's something that happens when a camera comes on. Like it's almost like I black out and all of a sudden there's like this aliveness, right? And the same thing with
Mhm.
live videos, the same things with interviews and podcasts, all of a sudden like I feel good. I feel
Mhm.
energy. I elevate to that level and I know that this is my sole purpose. And so it doesn't happen overnight, right? And I think right now in a world that is like mixed between real life and virtual, living in alignment authentically for who you are is so freaking important. Is so important. And I'll tell you why, because I didn't realize I had a I've always used hard work as something to get what I want, but I often sacrifice my personal joy because of it. I sacrifice my sleep. I sacrifice my health. I would like
Mhm.
feel like I had to do it like almost as a punishment, like it had to be hard. And I don't know if anyone ever has felt that way. That like I have to work really, really hard. I have to sacrifice all these things to build a life that I'm excited about, and that simply isn't the case. I had a really great mentor teach me that you can find joy, you can choose joy. And when you do that and you start working in alignment with who you are and what you want, not only do you find joy every day and gratitude every day, but you start to have these opportunities show up, and then you get to hand pick the things that you want to do because you're living
Mhm.
authentically like you, because nobody else on the planet can do that, right? And in a world where AI will take over 40% of the jobs in the next 5 years, in a world where that happens, we need to
Mhm.
wake up and realize that our personal experience and our uniqueness is what will change the game and separate us from the rest,
Mhm.
right? So you have to be open to being vulnerable and talking about the things that you've overcome so you can help people in that process. So you asked about leaving Canada and how we decided to do that, and like I'm thinking that I have full permission for transparency here, you know.
Oh, absolutely. You go. You're yes, yes.
So right. So, I'm a firm believer in free speech, which is something that is being threatened up there. I'm a firm believer in living life on your terms. And like Brian and I were working so hard, and this is before COVID. Like I just want to say this is before COVID. We're working so hard, and we made a great income financially. We were totally set. But like the money was going out as fast as it was coming in. You know, and we couldn't
Mhm.
get ahead. And I remember standing in the kitchen multiple times, like not just once, like we always had the hard conversations. But I remember, like in our old house in the city, I remember standing and saying, like, how are we supposed to get ahead? Like, how are in this, like,
Mhm.
how are we supposed to get ahead living in the city doing this? Right. And then we had our daughter, and I was like, I don't want to raise her in the city. We loved our life there downtown, but our city, where I grew up, Victoria, it's changed. It's not the same city that it used to be, where we used to run around and have fun and, be out till all hours of the morning and it was safe. It's not like that anymore. 10 years ago, I stopped walking home at night after 9 p.m. at my job because it wasn't safe to do so. And you could see mental health issues were on the rise and there were no solutions in the city, and that the homeless population was getting larger and larger and larger. And I didn't feel comfortable. Sometimes at night, my husband would be at work downtown and I would be at home by myself at night. And we lived very close to downtown. and I would hear people yelling on the streets. I'm at home with my baby, and I was like, I don't feel safe here. Like, I don't like what is happening here. She's never going to be able to play at the park 2 blocks away. She's never going to be able to go do that because it's not safe. And I don't want to be a helicopter parent. Like, we joke around in our family that we had this like Huck Finn type lifestyle, that we were out in the forest, running around, climbing trees, building
That was
forts, like,
us.
and
Yeah.
and and I wanted to
Mhm.
raise my daughter that way, but we can't raise our kids the same way as we were raised because we're living in a different world. We're living in a completely
Yeah.
different world, right? And so, we
Mhm.
decided to make the difficult decision to move from the city to the country because we wanted her to be able to be outside, closer to nature. We wanted a garden. We wanted to develop a property. We want chickens. We wanted that lifestyle, right? And so we ended up. My husband's always flipped real estate and done very well that way. He knows how to time the market. He's a brilliant mind. And so he told me, like, when she was almost one, he said, Christina, we have to sell our house right now, or we're not going to get what we can get for it right now for another 10 years. And he's had this conversation with me twice. And so I was like, okay, so this is the first time he's had it. I'm like, okay, then I guess, like, do we need to sell it in like 2 months, like 6 months? He's like now. We need to sell it now. And so, like, we ran
Mm.
around for 2 weeks, set up our house, sold our house within a week. Like, within a month we sold the house. And we did really well on that. We doubled what he had in the beginning. So, like, you just keep doubling your nest egg with these. And so you sell high, buy low. So we go
Mhm.
into the country and we buy, what we think is our dream acreage, and we thoroughly enjoyed our 5 years out here, or out there, I should say. We loved watching the owls and the deer and the sheep and the chickens, and playing, and it was so fun. But the property that we bought wasn't our dream property. We learned a lot along the way. It was a hell of a lot of work to have 10 acres, and as beautiful
Mm.
as it was, like, smaller property, less work, more time for family, right? Like, we have to prioritize. And again, we learned our lesson through that process. And so COVID hit, and, like, we actually had, like, a bunch of friends that were like, "Oh my god, you guys have the dream," because we're all stuck in the city and these lockdowns and all this stuff, and can't go to restaurants and can't do any of this stuff, can't go to the gym, like, all these things were closed. And they're like, "You get to play out in the forest and, like, grow your garden," and I was like, "Yeah, but it was conversations that led to that. It was thinking ahead. It was seeing what was projected to come down the pipeline, and paying attention. It wasn't just plugging into the fear and stuff on the news. It was getting a global view of what was happening and how we wanted to raise our family and what our core values were. You know, and so
Mhm.
we love that life. But when COVID hit, I also realized how isolated we were. It was really hard not to
Mm.
get around people, and I realized that I wasn't good being very isolated. Like, I need to be around people. My husband doesn't need to. He could chop wood and, like, sit in our house with our wood burning stove all day, and that would be it, right? Like, he'd be totally fine to do that,
Mhm.
but I'm not that way. And then we had
Right.
disruptions in school, and she was out of school, and then school was canceled, and then there was just some things at school. I think any parent can probably agree, whatever side of the coin you're on, there's just some things, some controversies at school right now that I was just like, no, we're not doing this. She has, we have 7 years with her to instill good values and morals and decision making skills. I am not putting her in this. I'm not going to
Mm.
have her be, like, if you've got older kids, it's a little bit easier because, we were all raised in this indoctrination. We were all raised to think a certain way, right? But it's even worse now. Like, it's getting worse what's happening, and I just wasn't willing to put my daughter in that position. So we decided that we were going to pull her from school. There was a few things that happened. We tried to show up to PTA meetings. We tried to have a voice. We had none. They were done by Zoom, and there was no time for us to speak or ask questions. It was just like, are you fundraising or not? And it just, I was like, this is not the community that I want to raise my family in. This is not my belief system. And so we decided to
Mhm.
pull her, and this was, like, right on the edge of like, severe lockdowns where, people in Canada weren't allowed to leave the country if they didn't abide by certain health regulations. And we had had 2 miscarriages that year, and I had already gone through postpartum. I was already,
Mhm.
super depressed and trying to build business and isolated. And then we were isolated from family and friends. And I was just like, my mindset wasn't great. Like, I was building business, I was moving forward, I was trudging through, but, like, I was not okay. And I remember, like, after it was August, and I stood in my mom's backyard. My sister was just about to have a baby. I was like supposed to have a baby within 3 days of her having a baby and was no longer having a baby. And I was so happy for her, but
Mhm.
I was not okay. And I just looked at my mom and I like started crying. And I said, I'm not okay. I'm not okay right now. Like none of this is okay.
Mhm.
Whatever's going on, the division, the controversy, the how family and friends and people around us, like we don't get to see each other. Like none of this is okay. Right.
Mhm.
And it came to October, and we were supposed to come down to Mexico for a work trip, and we weren't even going to go because like it was a paid trip, and we weren't even going to go because we would have to wait 3 weeks on either side, like on the end of the trip for Izzy to be able to go back to school because of all the stupid regulations, right? If you travel internationally, like it was like 2 week you had to wait on the back end, so it was like going to be like
Yeah.
a month she was off school. And so I was like, this is ridiculous.
Mhm.
But when we decided to pull her from school, my husband's like, she's in kindergarten. We'll figure it out. We'll get some workbooks. It'll be fine. Right. Like she's already ahead of where she's supposed to be. Like, we'll figure it out. And so he's like, let's just go to Mexico and like take 3 to 6 months and just have a balcony view of our lives, what we're doing up here, what's going to happen down there. Like, let's just take a break because we've had a really rough couple of years. And I was really
Mm.
nervous about that because I was like traveling with COVID and like all that kind of stuff, like I love to travel, but I still had that apprehension. And I just so happened to have a friend that had come to Mexico for a work trip. And she's like, you need to go. Life is like better in the sunshine. It's a different energy playing down there. Everybody is having a good time. It's like this, none of this stuff is happening. It will fill your soul with joy. And I was like, I choose that. I choose that.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. And so we packed up. We like within 2.5 weeks, we packed up our house. Thought, okay, we might Airbnb it. We'll figure it out later, right? Like I don't know. We booked a couple of Airbnbs down here. We flew down for the incentive trip that we had earned down here and had a great time at the Hard Rock. It's still my daughter's favorite resort down here.
Oh.
And then we came and we started and we started our life down here, our little like chapter in Mexico. And very quickly we realized, wow, this is great. Like this is good for us. This is good for our daughter. This is good for, our souls. And we're living life on our terms. So we'd spent a lot of time in Mexico. We got married down here. We've driven down here and spent a couple weeks here. We've now, like, my husband's driven down 3 times. I've driven down twice from Canada. I love that drive. It's so fun.
Mhm.
And like
Yeah.
it's not for everybody. I understand what I'm saying is not for everybody. Like I get
Sure.
that. But for us, this adventure has been like the best decision we've ever made. And so my husband again came to me in December and he said, Christina, we're at that same point that we have to sell our house now. And I'm like 6 months now or like now? He's like, now.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so we did he said either now or 10 years. And I said, now.
Mhm.
So we sold the house very quickly. We were able to profit. We were able to buy something down here mortgage free that we're waiting to be built, right? So we'll have a place in Mexico with no mortgage. We have enough money for other investments and other property and, another property if we'd like to have it. We're working down here for a nest egg. So like we've had so many other opportunities open up because we had the courage to take a risk, right? And your risk is equal to your reward. It's not like small risk, small challenge, big reward. It's never that. It's like your risk is absolutely equal and your challenge is equal to the reward. And so this was a big risk for us. We
Mhm.
gave up family, which was really difficult. We gave up, our home. We gave up all of those things so that we could live more in alignment with who we are and what we believe in. And our daughter now is in
Mhm.
a really beautiful private school that is like a world school. So they teach them conceptually how to question everything and see all different sides. She's learning Spanish. She like is almost fluent in Spanish. We get
Wow.
to spend so many of our days with her and so much time with her that we wouldn't have had before because we both had to be working so hard to keep up with taxation, to keep up with the cost of living, to keep up with all of those things. We no longer have to do that now. And so it's just a
Mhm.
different way of looking at things. It's a different a choice that you make. But
Mhm.
if you do it and it's in alignment with who you are, then it always works out, right? And what's worst case scenario? You go back in a couple of years, or it's 5 years, and or you stay for 10 or 20, right? Like a lot of people, well, if you make it past, I think your first 5 years here, you'll be here forever, right? But like
Yeah.
it is an
Yeah.
adjustment. There are challenges. Like there are things that
Mhm.
you have to go through to be a part of this. But man, like you have to start living life on your terms and you have to live your truth. You have to live your brand. It's not enough to throw pictures up and positive quotes. Like, you have to be living what you believe in.
I love that you said this. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I think that is such a beautiful, empowering story that will just allow other people the opportunity to, like, okay, wait, I can even choose something different. Like, some people, like you said, we're raised to think a certain way, to act a certain way. We're raised to be employees, right? And so to think
Yes.
out of this traditional, box sometimes takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery. And so, it's easy to look at you and it's easy to think, okay, well, she's just not afraid. She just, doesn't have, the same kind of issues that anyone else would.
Right.
And I know from being a woman, from being an entrepreneur, from being a mother, I know that that is not true. And I love this idea that you said that you worked through your failures. How would you describe this idea of working through failures? Because a lot of times, again, what we've been taught is that if it fails, then it means it didn't work out, or we shouldn't do this, or whatever. And so how would you speak to, the normal woman watching this who is like, wait a minute, there's another way? How would you share with her this idea to be able to work through that failure, to not stop at that? Because again, it's easy to look at you and just think, okay, she's beautiful, she's articulate, she has it all together, she doesn't have these fears. But we all know that's not true, right? Like, we all
Mhm.
deal with those inward fears and those inward things. So how would you say to someone who is, maybe facing some things on their own? How do you work through them, and how would you encourage someone else to work through those failures to get to the other side?
You have such good questions. Like, seriously, it's very rare that I get on interviews like this and have good questions. Like, you're phenomenal at what you do, and I'm so excited that you have a podcast because you're gonna be able to help so many people because of the depth of your question. And
Mm,
so, I'm happy to answer that. There's two different things that I want to focus on in the answer to that. Number one is your inner circle matters. Who you spend time with matters. If somebody does not have your best interest at heart, at some point it becomes apparent, and you have to realize that you have to take a step back and you have to create a boundary. Doesn't mean that you have to get rid of them, but they just can't be in your inner circle. You talk about not having fear. Gosh, like, I feel sick all the time. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. And I have my counselor, like, on speed dial. I have energy healers that work around me. I'm like, this is I'm struggling with this. I feel challenged by this today. Like, I hate to bring this up, but it's true. If you're creating an impact and you're putting yourself out there and being vulnerable and you're creating content every day, at some point, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you're going to get hate on your stuff. Okay. And so
mhm,
when you get hate, number one, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't, like, I don't care who you are. You can, like, be Superman and you still, like, okay, I have to do some work to get through this. Like, I got to do some work to put up my protective shield and not have this. And so I have people in my corner that can help me do that because of my past. I've been bullied. I've had, issues throughout my life, and I know that those issues have been qualifying me for what's to come. And so that every time, I said to my husband the other day, because I got another douse of hate online, and look, people are not going to agree with you. Not everybody's going to agree with you. The world is polarized and disrupted right now. Like, we are so divisive right now, and so not everybody is going to agree with you, and everybody has an opinion. Even if they don't have any credibility, they have an opinion and a judgment, and they want to be heard. Right? There's, like,
mhm,
activists galore out there, right? So they want to be heard, but you have to understand that isn't necessarily a reflection of you, but it is an opportunity to grow. So I'm going to talk a little bit about
yeah,
that because I said to my husband, I got another dose of hate online, and most of it is because there's a lot of poverty in Mexico, and we come here and we bring business and we bring money and we contribute, but a lot of people can't see out of their own fear and their own situation, and prefer victimhood as opposed to taking control and doing something to improve their lives. And so you have to understand that there is that energy out there and you have to deflect it at every turn and just bat it away. But I said to my husband, every time I see something like that, um, you know, it's like going to the gym, right? You go to the gym and you get stronger and you get stronger. You got sore muscles and you don't want to do it. And then you get stronger and you get stronger. I said, every time I see something like that, I get stronger. Every time I'm like, how am
Good
I
for
going to address
you.
this? What am I going to do? How do I feel about this? Right? Is it something that I need to adjust? Is it something that I need to self reflect on? And like, maybe there is a better way to talk about this. Maybe but having an inner circle, number one, of people that you can go to that you trust to have good news, because not everybody is going to be happy for you with good news. The second piece is going to ask somebody to show you your blind spots. Who do you have in your circle that can show you your blind spots and say, well, what if you looked at it this way? Right? Because that's how you
Mhm,
get better. Right? If you stop looking at it as
mhm.
failure and see it as a stepping stone to what's next, then all of a sudden everything changes. And so having people that you trust in an inner circle that can help you, number one. But number two is this like idea of self-reflection, right? Every month I go like and do an in-depth like questionnaire of my purpose, my intention, and my business. And like I reflect on what I could have done better from the month before. Okay. But I also do that daily. Like most people write their intentions or write their New Year's resolutions just like the week before Christmas, the first week of January, right? And then they don't revisit them to the following year. If you're good, you'll do it, you'll do it quarterly. If you're great,
Mhm.
you'll do it monthly. If you are excellent, you will do it weekly. And if you are somebody that is absolutely committed to being the best, you'll do it daily. And you'll just reflect at the end of the day, what could I
Yeah.
have done better? What could I have adjusted course? Ooh, that conversation didn't go the way that I wanted to. What could I learn? And one of the things that I learned in the process
Mhm.
from talking to people, from counseling, from reflection is that often when something bothers us, when something strikes a chord, when something doesn't feel good, it's because there's a truth that we need to reflect upon for ourselves that we're not ready to face. So I'll give you an
Mhm.
example. If I talk to women in business that don't have children, okay, and they talk about, their morning 2-hour routine that they go to the gym and do yoga and like have this wonderful whatever, and then they go and they have like their meditation practice, like they have like this 4-hour routine in the morning. I'm like, I just got to get my kid out the door. Like, are you kidding? I don't have 4 hours. Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, I'm just trying to keep it
Mhm.
together, right? Or like, oh, I
Yeah.
just struggle to stay motivated. I'm like, you have all the time in the world. And so like
Yeah.
sometimes I feel a little bit irritated in those conversations. And I
Mhm.
recognize very quickly that it's not me being irritated with them. It's me being irritated with myself that I have not created a routine that I feel fulfilled in, that
Mhm.
I feel is necessary or could create the highest energy for me to operate that day, right? I'm usually operating on neutral, right? Like as a parent, so I recognize, oh, it's not her, it's not him, it's me and it's my filter and how I'm perceiving this situation. So that like little piece of irritability has nothing to do with them and their beautiful life routine and how they choose to live life. I chose to have a child. I chose to be a conscious parent. I chose to care so much that we were willing to uproot everything for her. And that is my pride and joy. And so I live for that. And when I start to reflect on that, I have a lot less jealousy for the 4 hours in the morning because I'd way rather cuddles. I'd way rather the talks in the morning where I'm braiding her hair. I'd way rather walk her to school in the morning and spend that time with her, hearing about what she's excited about, the friend that she met, or the dog that she saw. Like, I'd way rather that time with her than anything else. And that's the reflection that you need to do to bring that joy back into your life.
I love that. I love that so much. I love, that you are taking the time to reflect. I recently have started doing 30-day vision boards. I've done, yearly vision boards, 5-year vision boards for years now. And even more recently, I've started doing journaling at night, where at the end of the day, I reflect on what went well, what am I grateful for, and building that list of what is the word I'm looking for? It starts with a C. Um,
Credibility
credibility,
or
building that. It's something else, but it's like that, building that list for yourself, that evidence, that list of evidence,
yes.
right? And so I love that you are taking the time to do that, because it makes a huge difference, right? It just does.
Yeah.
The other thing that I love that you shared is, looking at these, even the situation with haters coming in your world, looking at those as opportunities and not as setbacks. It's up to us, either, a stumbling block or a stepping stone, right? The perception is up to us. So it's super important that we take the opportunity to grow from all of the experiences that we're having, to reflect on the things that, are working, maybe not working so well, the perceived failures. If we can look at those as growth opportunities, oh my gosh, like we would be so much better off. I love too that you talked about this inner circle of people. I was listening to a book recently, and I think it was Brian Tracy who said, he heard people talk about it's lonely at the top.
Yeah.
And Brian Tracy said, if it's lonely at the top, then you did it wrong.
Yep.
And I love this idea because the bottom line is this, is that you can get to the top alone, but it's not worth it, right? Like you and
No.
I are here to change that story. You and I are here to, remind women, especially, that, it's this community that together we rise. And when you have that group of people, that inner circle that can lift you up, that can elevate you, that can remind you of all of the things that either you need to look at differently, or the things that you are doing well, when you have those people in your corner. And, I think this is something that drew me to you in the beginning. I think you do this very, very well, is that you are not afraid of also taking those people up with you. You are not just going to rise to the top on your own. You are going to, you're going to be the tide that rises all of those ships. And so I just love that you say that. Christina, I have so thoroughly enjoyed this. This has been absolutely incredible. Just to get to have a conversation with you, to get to know you better, to get to, share you with my audience, and, vice versa, all the things. But one of the last questions I have for you is, if you had 30 seconds to a minute to share with the world your most important message, what would that be?
Ooh, you can have it all. You can have the family and be present. You can have the income that sets you financially free. You can have the time to yourself to focus and take a break from everything else. Like, you can gift yourself that time. And you can also make a massive impact by helping other people. I always say to people, be bold, be brave, be disruptive, because you are capable of things far beyond your wildest dreams if you just have the courage to go for it. And so often we play small. We play small because it's comfortable. And I think that in a world like this, where opportunity is shifting, like, money is not going to disappear over the next couple of years. It's going to change hands. That's what's going to happen. And so if you can be somebody that wants to help others and find a way to serve, then go and serve and help other people, because you're going to face challenges, and you're going to face them right at the precipice of when there's a massive breakthrough. We talked a little bit about hate today. And on the other side of that, we've had international press because of it in the UK. We've had press in Canada because of it, being down here in Mexico. I now write for the biggest English speaking news publication in Mexico, called the Mexico News Daily, as a lifestyle, right? So, like, all of these things wouldn't have happened if I didn't have the courage to put myself out there and be like, you know what? I'm going to do it my way, and I'm going to share with people. And those that want to come with me will come with me. And those that don't, that's fine, because you can't save anyone. All you can do is go out and save yourself and show other people how you did it.
Yep. Yep. I mean, it's that whole adage, you can't become poor enough to help the poor, to elevate the poor. You have to become rich to help
That's
the poor,
right.
to really, truly
That's
help
right.
the poor, right? Like,
Yes.
so I love that. Christina, I love, that your desire is to help other women. One thing, if you could say to them, the women who are watching this, who, might be struggling with that one thing, that is holding them back, what would you say to step out of that, to get out of their own way, to live authentically, to live boldly, and to really put themselves out there? What would you say?
I'd tell them to go find a person that they admire, somebody that's already living the life that they want to live, somebody that they've been watching, somebody that they're like, man, I wish I could do that. And go send them one message and say, I just want to know how you did it. Right? I
I love
just ask
that.
instead of being envious or curious, like just take action and go ask, because somebody that is successful, someone that's more successful than you will never rain on your parade. They'll always reach down and bring you with them if you're willing to do the work.
Mhm. I love that. I love that. So don't stay isolated, right? Like don't stay, stuck in that thinking or that old pattern or that old story, whatever it is. Like step out, reach out, use your voice to make a change in your life. So Christina, this has been absolutely incredible. Again, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on to the show, for being my first guest. I told her when we were backstage, I'm like, you are the perfect person because you are just so articulate. You are so just well spoken. And I knew that you would just be so fun to highlight and to get to really showcase. Christina, for all of my viewers that don't know you, who aren't familiar with you, how can we follow you? How can we get in touch with you?
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate being here. And again, I'm so honored to be your first guest. So you can get a hold of me on Facebook, Christina Whiteley. You can get a hold of me on Instagram and TikTok. You can follow, but you can't get a hold of me there at the Christina Whiteley on both of those. And if you want to email me, it's info@christinawhiteley.com. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions or anything that I said today hit home, I'd love to hear what your feedback is.
And you have a book out, right? Is it on
I
Amazon?
do. I have a couple books. So I have Women Let's Rise, which is a collaborative book, and then I have a chapter in Momentum Makers, which talks all about leadership and team building. I also have a free Facebook group that I would encourage you to join. It's called Life Transformed, and I do a lot of business training in there, and a lot of the times I air my podcasts in there before I pitch them live on Spotify and Apple, and that's the Beyond Balance podcast.
Oh, Beyond Balance. So we got to go. Everybody go check that out. So go like Christina, go follow her, go get in her groups, go get on Apple. Are you on Apple Podcasts?
Apple and Spotify.
Yes. Okay. And it's called what?
Beyond Balance. It's a transformational podcast for entrepreneurs.
Okay. I'm going to go add that too. So Christina, thanks again so much. This has been awesome. I just want to encourage all of you guys watching this that you matter. Your life matters. Sometimes, we get stuck in this idea that like nobody sees, nobody knows, nobody cares, nobody whatever. And that is not the truth at all. That is a lie. And the truth is that you matter. Your story matters. And so I want to remind you today to get out there to my hope is that this show reminds you of your greatness. I hope that in, hearing Christina's story, that you are reminded of your own gold, that spark, that little thing in you that you're like, oh yeah, if it's something that she shared that, oh my gosh, I can move, I can start a business, I can be a mom and be a successful entrepreneur, whatever it is, let that be a light inside of you that sparks this big thing, right? Whatever it is, this big flame, this big whatever, and just go out there and elevate those around you because you were designed for greatness. So Christina, thanks again.
Thank you
We
so
will
much for
see you
having
guys
me.
all. Be sure to like and subscribe if you are on YouTube. And we will see you guys next week. Bye, Christina. Thank you so much for being here. Bye, everyone. Thank you.